The soft hum of my phone vibrating against the marble countertop pulled me out of my morning reverie. I stared at the message. Emily, we need you. It's urgent. From my perch in my high-rise apartment overlooking downtown Chicago, I allowed myself a slow, deliberate exhale. The city stretched endlessly beneath me. Gleaming towers, honking taxis, the occasional flash of someone walking hurriedly to somewhere important. Yet, for all its chaos, I felt a bubble of calm that my family had never believed I could achieve. They used to call me lazy. My own parents, at family dinners, shaking their heads as if my ambition had been a cruel joke. And yet here I was, living proof that quiet resilience, when nurtured, could bloom in ways they could never anticipate. I ran my fingers over the silk of my blouse, the smooth fabric grounding me as my mind spun with memories I hadn't touched in years. The phone buzzed again. My sister's name flashed on the screen.
Sarah.
The one person I never thought would need me in this way. My chest tightened, a mixture of worry and that ironic sense of pride that comes from being underestimated. I wondered briefly if she even knew how far I had come, or if she, too, still believed the old story. Coffee steam curled upward, carrying the faint aroma of cinnamon and vanilla, and I realized the moment of reckoning had arrived. The sister who had grown up watching me do nothing was now counting on me for something only I could provide. And for the first time in years, I felt the familiar tingle of anticipation, the quiet thrill of stepping into a role they had never imagined me see. I was 15 when it all began. My bedroom smelled faintly of lavender and old books, a sanctuary where I could at least pretend the world didn't exist. But downstairs, the world, my family, was waiting to tell me who I was, or rather, who they thought I should be. "You're never going to amount to anything, Emily," my mom said, her voice sharp, cutting through the quiet of the early evening. My dad nodded in agreement, folding his hands over his chest like a jury delivering a verdict. "You sit around all day, reading, doodling, you don't even lift a finger to help us." The lump in my throat grew heavy, and my hands trembled so violently I dropped the notebook I had been sketching in. Pencil rolled across the floor, a tiny echo of the way their words bounced around inside me. I wanted to tell them I was not lazy, that I was learning, thinking, dreaming, but the words stuck like gravel in my throat. It was my grandmother, Nana Joan, who came to my rescue, not with lectures, but with something far more powerful. She handed me a small, leather-bound journal, the corners frayed, the pages blank. "Write your story, Emily," she said, her eyes soft yet resolute. "No one else will understand your journey unless you give it to them. Keep this close and keep moving, even if they call it laziness." I clutched that journal like a lifeline, feeling a flicker of hope. That night, I made a decision that would define me. I would not let their words dictate my worth. I would step into the world on my own terms, silently proving that quiet determination could outweigh loud disapproval. The next morning, I left my room earlier than usual, backpack slung over my shoulder, journal pressed to my chest. My parents' disapproving eyes followed me, but I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I simply walked out the door, carrying with me the knowledge that the world outside, messy, unpredictable, and unforgiving, was mine to navigate. For the first time, I understood that being labeled lazy wasn't a reflection of who I was. It was a challenge, a test I intended to pass, not with defiance, but with strategy, patience, and relentless determination. Leaving home was just the beginning. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in downtown Chicago, where the hum of traffic became my morning alarm and the distant wail of sirens my evening soundtrack. I had no plan, only determination, and Nana Joan's leather-bound journal tucked under my arm like armor. Every night I wrote, not just thoughts, but strategies, dreams, calculations. I began small, freelance graphic design, logo work for local cafes, anything that allowed me to start carving out space for myself. It wasn't glamorous. I worked 12-hour days, often skipping meals, watching tutorials online to master software I had never touched before. Some nights, I lay awake listening to the city breathe, questioning whether I was really cut out for this life. The voice of my parents still echoed in my head, lazy, useless, hopeless, but I pushed it down. Every completed project, every positive client review became a tiny rebellion, a proof that I could. Then came the mentor, a woman named Claire Bennett, a senior creative director at a boutique design firm. I had met her at a networking event, clutching my portfolio like it contained my very soul. She didn't laugh when I introduced myself, didn't roll her eyes when I admitted I was self-taught. Instead, she looked at my work, then at me, and said, "Emily, you have potential. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Claire guided me, but she never held my hand. I learned to negotiate contracts, manage clients, and eventually run small teams. My first big break came unexpectedly. A tech startup needed a brand overhaul, and they loved my designs. The contract doubled my income. For the first time, I could pay my rent without worrying, buy groceries without thinking twice, and even save a little. Each small win was a seed. Soon, the garden of my independence was blooming. I kept my family in the dark. They would ask casually how I was doing on calls, expecting vague updates. I told them I was keeping busy, or managing things, letting them cling to the illusion that I was still the girl who sat around doing nothing. It was almost funny, in a bittersweet way, how easily they accepted the narrative they had created. Months turned into years. I expanded my freelance work into my own small agency. The tiny studio apartment became an elegant loft filled with natural light, framed designs, and the hum of creativity. I learned that success was not loud, not about proving them wrong. It was about building something that no one could take away from me. Through it all, Nana Jones' journal remained by my side. Every once in a while, I would flip through those early pages, reading my fears and my dreams, amazed at how far I had come. I was no longer the girl labeled lazy. I was the woman who had turned every insult, every doubt, into fuel for a future no one, not even my family, could have predicted. The knock on my office door was soft but insistent. I looked up from my laptop, where I was reviewing designs for a high-profile client, and froze for a split second. My heart skipped, not from fear, but from a strange mix of anticipation and irony. There they were, my family, my parents, stiff and formal, and Sarah, my younger sister, who had been the mirror of their expectations, the obedient one. The same people who had once whispered that I was lazy, useless, and a disappointment, now stood in my carefully curated world. My office was nothing like they had imagined. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating minimalist shelves stacked with books, awards, and framed artwork from my earliest freelance projects. A soft rug muffled their steps, and a vase of fresh flowers sat on my desk, filling the room with a subtle hint of jasmine. The scent, the colors, the calm elegance, it all spoke of control, of vision, of a life meticulously built from the ground up. I leaned back in my chair, letting them take it in. I didn't rush to speak. My silence was its own statement. I watched Sarah's eyes widen, a mixture of awe and disbelief crossing her face. My parents exchanged glances, their expressions tight, with something that teetered between pride and shame. Finally, I spoke, my voice calm, steady, carrying the weight of years of quiet determination. "You called me lazy," I began, letting the words hang in the air, heavy yet precise. "You said I would never amount to anything. You doubted me, dismissed me, and laughed at my dreams." I paused, letting the memory of every sting, every insult, every judgment resonate between us. "But while you were busy labeling me, I was building something. Something that only I could create, on my own terms." I tapped a few keys on my laptop, and the screen lit up with the numbers. My net worth, the agency I founded, the projects I led, evidence that every doubting word they had ever spoken was not only wrong but insignificant. Sarah leaned forward, her hand trembling slightly as she read the figures. My parents' faces drained of color, replaced by an awkward, unspoken acknowledgement of their misjudgment. "I know this may be hard to believe," I continued, letting a small, ironic smile touch my lips. But the truth is, everything you thought was laziness was actually patience, strategy, and hard work. I didn't need your approval to succeed. I just needed myself. Sarah's eyes glistened, and I saw the vulnerability in her expression. She had come seeking help, guidance, the cure only I could give. And in that moment, I understood the strange symmetry of life. The sister who had once been my shadow now needed my light. The realization settled over the room like a warm, quiet wave. I stood, walking over to the window, letting the cityscape stretch behind me, a reminder of everything I had fought for. Now, I said softly, turning to face them, we begin differently. I'm here to help, but it will be on terms that respect what I've built and who I've become. And just like that, the balance had shifted. The girl they once dismissed had transformed into the woman they had never imagined. The room was silent, yet charged with possibility, and I knew this was the moment where the past finally met the present on my terms. The room remained heavy with tension as I closed the distance between us. I could see the lingering doubt, the remnants of judgment in their eyes, and I knew that any offer of help had to be framed carefully. This was no longer about proving myself. It was about rewriting the rules of how we interacted, ensuring respect and growth. Sarah, I began, my tone firm but gentle. I know you didn't come here expecting to hear this. And I know you need guidance, support, but it has to be on terms that honor both of us. I won't step back into the dynamic we had before. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. She nodded, blinking quickly, the weight of my words sinking in. I handed her my grandmother's leather-bound journal, the same one that had been my lifeline when I was 15. This helped me find direction when I had none, I said softly. I wanted to help you too, but only if you're willing to put in the work. No shortcuts. No excuses. Turning to my parents, I set boundaries firmly. I will help you understand the business side of what I've built if you are willing to listen, learn, and leave behind the patterns that stifled me for so long. You will not belittle, dismiss, or underestimate me again. If you want a relationship with me, it will be based on respect and growth, not control or judgment. I could see the mixture of guilt, shame, and hope ripple through them. This wasn't easy, and I didn't expect it to be. Real change never is. We all carry our own versions of fear and doubt, I continued, my voice softening slightly. But we can grow past them. I can guide you, but you have to meet me halfway. You have to want to change for yourself, not for me. I outlined concrete steps. Sarah would shadow me in the agency, learning hands-on how to create, manage, and innovate. My parents would attend workshops, participate in mentorship programs, and confront old habits that had caused tension for years. Each condition was tied to growth, accountability, and emotional healing. Compassion tempered my firmness. I wasn't punishing them, but I wasn't bending to patterns that had once hurt me. There was a long pause. The air was charged, but not with hostility. It was a charged anticipation of possibility. Sarah reached for the journal, her fingers brushing mine briefly, a silent acknowledgement of trust and commitment. My parents exchanged glances, then nodded, understanding that respect was now the currency of our relationship. For the first time, the room felt collaborative, not judgmental. I realized that power wasn't about dominance, it was about setting terms, creating safe space, and nurturing growth, even if it meant standing firm. I could feel the old labels lazy, incapable, dismissible, fade into memory. They no longer had power over me. I had reclaimed it, and now I was extending it with conditions that ensured it would be honored, not abused. By the end of that day, the balance had truly shifted. I was no longer the underestimated girl, nor was I simply a sister or daughter fulfilling old roles. I was a guide, a leader, and the architect of a new dynamic, one rooted in respect, accountability, and the quiet, unshakable knowledge that I was finally, undeniably in control. Months passed, and slowly, I watched the transformation unfold. Sarah, once hesitant and unsure, began to flourish. She embraced challenges with a newfound confidence, leaning into the lessons I shared and applying them with her own flair. She wasn't trying to be me, thankfully, but she was learning to be the best version of herself, and the satisfaction I felt was quiet but profound. My parents, too, began to shift. The rigidity in their posture softened, the judgment in their eyes replaced by curiosity and, gradually, pride. They admitted past mistakes, small confessions that no one else had ever elicited, and they began showing genuine interest in growth, not just in me, but in themselves. The old dynamics that had once suffocated our family began to give way to a new rhythm, one built on mutual respect, accountability, and recognition of effort, not assumption. I often found myself returning to Nana Jones' journal, now filled with years of reflection, plans, and victories. I opened it and ran my fingers over the first pages, remembering the trembling 15-year-old who had been labeled lazy, dismissed, and underestimated. I smiled softly, feeling the threads of past pain and present triumph woven together. That journal wasn't just paper and leather. It was a witness to resilience, a testament to the power of quiet determination, and a reminder that I had always been capable of more than anyone believed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the Chicago skyline, Sarah placed a hand on my shoulder. "I couldn't have done this without you," she whispered. And for the first time, I felt the full weight of the journey, from being underestimated and dismissed to standing here, empowered, guiding those who once doubted me. I looked around my loft at the art, the awards, the small details that marked years of persistence and realized something important. Strength isn't about proving others wrong. It's about honoring yourself, nurturing your growth, and knowing when to extend your light to others. I picked up the journal and wrote a single line on the last page. I am no one's shadow. I am the architect of my own life. And in that quiet moment, I understood the truth that had carried me from a dismissed, lazy girl to the woman who now stood unshakable. Growth, resilience, and love for oneself could create miracles. And sometimes, the cure we hold for others is the same one that saved us all along.